at this afternoon's top stories. Minister Brantley pleased with a film based on Nevis's history. Guyana hosts domestic violence community workshops for 2017, and Afghanistan doctors on strike over kidnappings. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Wednesday, January 18th, 2017. I am Shaira Flanders. Nationally, acting Premier of Nevis, Honorable Mark Brantley, has applauded British historian and author Dr. June Goodfield for the production of her film, The Time Detective, based on her novel Rivers of Time, which is based on Nevis's history. Minister Brantley's praise for the artist came while delivering remarks at her film's debut at the Social Security's conference room at Pinney's earlier this week. He described it as an historic event and said, based on his recollection, the film is the first to be set in Nevis and actually prepare on the island. The minister noted that it would not be possible without Dr. Goodfield, and all praise was due to her. The film was produced and directed by Robin Baxter, director of New Wave Pictures Limited, based in the United Kingdom. In efforts to honor the champions of human rights, a march called International Women's March Global is scheduled to take place this weekend on Nevis. ZIZ spoke with organizing chair Carol Willer, who gave an overview of the Women's March Global event.
The Women's March Global that's happening here in Nevis is really part of an international movement inspired by a group of women in the United States, originally in 370 locations around the world now. And people will be gathering Saturday to support women's rights and the rights of all people in response to the rising rhetoric of far-right populism that's occurring around the world.
Willer went on to explain why the march is being held. She added that everyone is invited and even children and pets are welcomed.
It's really in the spirit of democracy and honoring the champions of human rights that the march is, in parallel with others fighting for women's rights and human rights around the world. We hope that this we plan it to be a kid-friendly and dog-friendly march. Everyone is welcome. It's nonpartisan and is being held specifically to express our support for women's rights and human rights rather than to criticize individual politicians or political parties.
The route of the International Women's March Global will begin at Caf des Arts, proceed along Main Street to Courthouse Square and return along Hunkins Drive and end back at the Caf des Arts vicinity. More than 50 countries in 370 locations are expected to participate in the march. The International Women's March Global event is scheduled to take place from 9 to 11 a.m. on Saturday in Charlestown. Chairman of Carnival, Noah Mills, is expected to make an appearance on today's edition of Working For You on ZIZ Radio. Mr. Mills will give an overview of Sugar Mass 44, 45 and beyond, highlighting some of the successes, rewards and challenges to date. The chairman is also expected to communicate his vision of Carnival and the new initiatives that he has introduced. He will also look at Carnival and its social, economic, cultural, educational benefits. Mills is expected to address the financing for Carnival and his governance agenda of accountability, transparency and financial management, among other issues. Working For You is broadcast live every Wednesday from ZIZ studio on 96.1 FM, Win FM and Sugar City Rock from 1:30 to 3 p.m. Working For You is also streamed live on the SKNIS Facebook page. The police have charged a man who swallowed pellets of cocaine. Julian Carty of Newtown was arrested on Sunday at the Robert L. Bratcher International Airport on suspicion of possession of illegal drugs. According to a police press release, Carty was charged with possession of cocaine with intent to supply, and importation of cocaine. Carty was detained on arrival in St. Kitts on suspicion of possession of the illegal drug. Investigations by officers and a medical screening at the Joseph N. France General Hospital revealed that he had swallowed a number of pellets containing cocaine. He passed the pellets at the hospital under observation. The police say additional charges are likely to be laid. Bail was denied and he has been remanded to Her Majesty's prison. Moving on to news on the regional scene, Guyana's Gender Affairs Bureau is heading into the communities to help stem the tide of domestic violence in 2017. HGP's Ayana George has the details on that story.
The Gender Affairs Bureau of the Ministry of Social Protection is set to make its presence felt in villages across the country to deal with the growing problem of domestic violence. Recent statistics released by the Guyana Police Force disclosed that 20 domestic-related murders took place in Guyana during 2016, with hundreds of cases of domestic violence and domestic abuse. The Gender Affairs Bureau wants to help stem that tide of violence in the communities. Here's Manager of Gender Bureau Department, Jason Shepard, telling us more.
Pretty much, we want to be able to put what we call out there. The term community policing is already there, but in essence, that is sort of what we're looking for. It's not just the community policing group, but to have your neighbors not sit by idly and see something happening and don't say anything about it. We want to bring some more awareness, put a little bit more spotlight. We are figuring that, since it happens that close to ground, any issue, in fact, not just domestic violence, even incest, child abuse, abuse of the elderly, we want people to be aware of what these things are, notice the signs, and raise an alarm about it.
A study conducted among women in the city a few years ago found that more than 60% of women who were involved in a relationship or union, 27.7% reported physical abuse, 26.3% had experienced verbal abuse, and 12.7% experienced sexual violence. Approximately half of the survey women responded that one of the likely causes of their partner's abuse was jealousy. Nearly 4 of every 5 respondents perceived violence in the family to be very common in Guyana. That situation has not changed, according to a more recent report. The manager of the Gender Affairs Bureau stated the importance of dealing with domestic violence.
Every time we pick up the papers, there's some issue in the papers. We want to see every issue through as best as possible, inform persons who might be victims of it. We even want to make known what we're doing and what we're here to offer.
For HGP Nightly News, Ayana George.
In St. Lucia, a high school principal has been hauled before the Teaching Services Commission for alleged misconduct with a female student. We hear more in this HTS St. Lucia report.
In August 2016, News Force broke the story of investigations being launched into reports of inappropriate behavior between the principal of a Castries-based school and teenage females of the institution. The accusations, then condemned by the Education Minister and other government officials, sparked widespread outrage. Minister Gail Rigobert at the time informed News Force that the matter will be allowed to run its course, opting not to comment further on the allegations. They ranged from inappropriate text messages to other forms of misconduct. It has now been confirmed that the school in question is the George Charles Secondary School, and the accused, principal and former Calypso monarch Walston Wally Alfred. Alfred had his first disciplinary hearing before the Teaching Service Commission Tuesday morning. He was accompanied by legal representative Alberton Richlow.
You care to give me a comment, Mr. Richlow?
Not at all. Why should I?
What took place?
Nothing at all. Just we are jailed until 14th February.
14th February.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what's the nature of the matter though with Mr. Alfred?
Disciplinary proceedings before the Teaching Service Commission.
Okay. Is he still a teacher? No. Is he still the teaching commission?
Yeah, he's still there. He's still a teacher.
So he's suspended pending investigation?
Well, that I do not know about.
Okay.
News Force has learned that the matter is not a legal one, as the student in question was not a minor at the time of the alleged incident. It is rather a matter of professional misconduct and as such does not warrant police intervention. Miguel Favre, HTS News Force.
Moving on to news on the international scene, a day after officials announced the suspension of the search for Malaysian airliner MH370, Australia's transport minister says it could resume if credible new evidence emerges. Darren Chester told a news conference in Melbourne that he does not rule out a future underwater search. More in this report.
The grief was as hard to watch as it was for them to endure. Confirmation for Chinese families that the search for their relatives was now over, 1,046 days after it began.
Our people are still alive. Please let them go.
Give me back my daughter, another mother pleads. They believe a range of conspiracy theories about what happened to flight MH370. But the end of the search leaves them with few answers to their many questions.
They spent 3 years trying to find this aircraft. There's so many clues they could have followed. Now they have stopped searching.
Around 30 family members had come for a briefing by airline officials, but they refused to appear until journalists had left.
There are a mixture of emotions here: anger, bitterness, grief, and a refusal to accept that MH370 and those on board will never be found.
But on Wednesday, Australia's Transport Minister said the search might resume if credible new evidence emerges.
Once we completed the 120,000 square kilometre highest probability search area, once that was completed, in the absence of any credible new evidence leading to a specific location of the aircraft, the search would be suspended at that time. Tragically, and it's a sad fact, that we have reached that time.
If there was another search, he hopes that better technology could help resolve what he called this extraordinary mystery. It was an unprecedented aerial and underwater search, costing more than $150 million and covering 120,000 square kilometres of the Indian Ocean. Most of the passengers on MH370 were Chinese. Many of their families have accepted the compensation offer of $360,000 for each death. But these families are holding out because they say to take the money would be to accept that their relatives are dead, which even now they still refuse to believe. Adrian Brown, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
Doctors at the main hospital in the Afghan city of Kunduz are on strike, refusing to treat patients after threats were made against their families. In the past year, at least 3 of the sons of different doctors working at the Kunduz Regional Hospital were kidnapped. Here's more.
In Kunduz, Afghanistan, people in need of desperate help are being turned away. Outside this hospital, the crowd is confused and angry in equal measure, unsure why they're being shut out.
The problem is that my wife has delivered a baby in the back of this car and there is no one to ask about her. They say that there are no doctors, even if the patient is seriously wounded. No one would care about it.
Some of the facility's staff are just as overwhelmed.
5 injured people just arrived. One is lying here, and the other one is in the other room. There are 7 urgent patients, but there are no doctors. I don't know why there are no doctors here. They are saying that a doctor's son was kidnapped, and they are not working.
Inside Kunduz Regional Hospital, the scene is also chaotic. Doctors who feel increasingly under threat, deciding to go on strike until security services can better protect them and their families.
We're living in a violent situation, and still our children are being kidnapped. When they kidnap my children and I suffer in this situation, how could I treat someone else's child?
In the past year alone, at least 3 of the sons of different doctors working here were kidnapped. On this day, staff had just learned of the 3rd child that had been taken. Even after security intervened, the frustration did not dissipate. While the police chief would not speak to Al Jazeera at the hospital, security officials said they are doing all they can to ensure any and every kidnapped child is returned to their families. All of this underscores how dire circumstances remain for both patients and doctors. The Kunduz Regional Hospital, which has since reopened to patients, is the only modern healthcare facility left in this area. In October 2015, dozens of people were killed when the U.S. repeatedly bombed a hospital operated by Doctors Without Borders. Now, while many are concerned that the Taliban, which briefly took control of the city twice in the past 2 years, will be back, others worry how and if they will be able to get medical care. Mohammed Jamjoom, Al Jazeera.
And now for the weather. Present weather is partly cloudy. Winds are blowing gently from the northeast at 12 miles per hour. Seas are moderate to locally rough with the swells up to 6 feet. The weather forecast predicts partly sunny skies today with a moderate chance of brief passing morning showers, becoming fair to partly cloudy tonight with a brief passing late night shower possible. That brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Shaira Flanders. Have a good one. News.